Images of violent clashes between French police and protesters have gone around the world over the past 10 days. The riots erupted after a teenager was shot dead during a traffic stop just north of Paris. But he was the third to die at the hands of the police this year. Just weeks before him, 19-year-old Alhoussein Camara from Guinea was killed in similar circumstances. DW correspondent Lisa Lewis reports from Angouleme in southwestern France.
This is where Alhoussein Camara lived for the past 18 months. After arriving in France from Guinea as a 15-year-old in 2018, he did everything to build himself a life in this country, the residence's director tells us. He was very impressive for someone his age. He got up at 4:30 every morning to go to work. He really wanted to integrate. For his friends, he was a role model, for those who, like him, crossed the Mediterranean to reach France, and for those he met once he arrived here. He was very calm, he was hard on himself, he never drank alcohol or took any drugs. He had a huge heart and was so generous and had this smile that was so contagious. But in the early morning of June 14th, on the way to work, Alhoussein was told to pull over by the police. According to their official statement, he tried to escape until stopping his car at this red light. Within the next few minutes, Alhoussein was shot in the chest, after which his car continued moving until it hit this wall. He was declared dead shortly after. A clear picture of that night's events still hasn't emerged. The officer's body cams were allegedly not working. The police officer who fired the gun has since been charged with voluntary homicide. Alhoussein is one of 3 people to have been killed by police during traffic stops this year, including the 17-year-old Naël in Nanterre, whose death caused days of countrywide riots. This civil rights activist says the nation's police enforcement regulations need to be rethought. A 2017 law gave the police larger powers for the use of firearms during traffic stops. Since then, the number of fatal shootings by the police has gone up drastically. Although we are being constantly watched by cameras everywhere, tragedies like this one happen without being filmed. There is no legal obligation for the police to use functioning body cams. That needs to change.
The police unions have declined our request for an interview. They said they preferred to remain silent as the investigation is still underway. That's unusual, as the unions regularly comment on ongoing investigations, such as the one into Naël's killing in Nanterre. It shows just how sensitive the matter is.
But for Alhoussein's friends, that silence is hard to bear. I feel like I'm going crazy. We didn't just lose a friend. He was like a pillar for all of us, someone who'd give us stability. We need to know the truth to find some peace of mind. Maya and Alhoussein's family are hoping to obtain justice one day, even if that takes several years.
Our correspondent Lisa Lewis fired that report and joins us now from Paris. Lisa, could you provide further details about the unclear circumstances surrounding these killings?
Well, it's very patchy indeed, but when you listen to the report, you know, one thing that was very strange was that the police were saying he fled from the police control and then stopped at a red traffic light at 4 o'clock in the morning, where there's hardly any traffic in the streets. The other thing is that I talked to an eyewitness who drove in front of him at that moment in the morning, because he was always also going to work, a friend of his, and he saw him drive just normally, whereas the police said that Alhoussein was zigzagging with his car. That didn't seem to be the case. At least when his friend was watching, he was then turning. He had to turn left to go to work, so he didn't see the police control itself. And also the test lab, the test results from the lab came back negative. It seems that Alhoussein hadn't had any alcohol, any drugs, and so there is no explanation for his supposed zigzagging with his cars. His his family and his friends are still waiting to hear more about this investigation, which doesn't seem very logical at all for now.
Now, there's this incident that you cover in your report, and that was a couple of months ago. Does it have any connection to the killing of the 17-year-old Nahel in Nanterre?
Well, not a direct connection, but this killing happened on the 14th of June. Nahel's killing happened on the 27th, and just on the 28th, the prosecutor in Angouleme charged the police officer with a voluntary homicide, not beforehand. So it seems that the fact that the killing in Nanterre was filmed and then there were riots everywhere, that also led to a certain response from authorities in Angouleme. I talked to the head of the residence where he was living, as you saw in my report, and he also told me that the French Secret Services contacted him asking if anything was, if people were very agitated after this event. So authorities seemed very worried on the 14th of June and in the days after that there would be riots, which did not happen, or just a little bit. There was a bit of rioting in the area for 1 or 2 days, but no major incidents. And the major incidents then erupted after Nahel's killing on 27th of June.
So you mentioned that there was a bit of unrest, but is there a concern that this killing could reignite the previous riots?
Well, that's the big question, really, because, obviously authorities are still watching the situation. We know that the riots have calmed down over the past few days, but they are worried that, there might be another spark, and maybe media coverage of this incident, because the media have largely ignored what happened in Angouleme. I went there yesterday. I know that Le Monde now published an article. Maybe there is more of a focus on that killing now, and that could spark further unrest, and I think the authorities are really closely watching the situation right now.
Thank you very much. DW correspondent Lisa Lewis there reporting from Paris.